They're always thinking that, us heterosexual people are the greatest threat to their existence. I'm thinking, yeah, but I'd like to point out to you, we're the only reason you have a fucking existence. We made you. Without us, you don't exist. So start being fucking nice or we'll stop.
Hello and welcome to the Resistance Podcast here from Sounds Beautiful Festival. I'm here with Steve Hughes. Steve, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Steve Hughes. Australian comedian. Half English, half Australian. There you go.
And so what's brought you down here today, Steve?
Well, we're doing the show this afternoon. Actually, what brought me down was my tour manager over there set up a tour and he said, "You're going there." And I went, all right.
And why did you choose to come to a freedom festival rather than just, your standard festivals or Edinburgh Fringe where they're cancelling everyone?
Well, I haven't been at Edinburgh Fringe for since 2007, so I can't even imagine what it's like now.
How degenerate was it when you went before?
Oh, it was just fun. It was just comedy, like comedy used to be. It's like a summer camp for neurotics back in the day. 30 days of just chaos, and they used to have the nasty show at night, whereas the idea was to come and hear the most offensive, chaotic comedy in the world. Offensive, a subjective expression, obviously, but that was the sort of the audience had carte blanche to destroy the acts.
Yeah,
that was the point of it, and then it was kind of a great thing. That was like a trial by fire to go through because if you survived this audience. Because it was like the audience was so brutal. Then, if you got through it, then you got cheered by the audience. You carried out victory. Good. You didn't collapse under the sheer oppressive terror of a whole audience being against you.
What are some of the worst heckles you've ever had?
I don't know. See, heckling's a strange thing to classify for me because sometimes an audience member yells out something that's a retort to a line you've said, and it's funny. It's like, so is that the heckle? Because it works, I've had audience guys yell out jokes, and you just off a line you've said, and it's so brilliant. The audience is pissing themselves. That's great. Whereas last night we did a show in Southampton, and there was just a bunch up the back. So I was on with Andrew Lawrence, and even when Andrew was on, they were just talking. And so is that a heckle? No, it's just an annoyance, isn't it? And then at one point, I was about 20 minutes into my act or something, and this guy, I was talking about Lemmy from Motorhead, and this guy he yells out, he's a lot more entertaining than you. And I'm just thinking, well, you could just go. Couldn't you? Like if you went somewhere, if you went to a film and halfway through you realised, I don't like this, you could just go, couldn't you? Like, I don't know what's wrong with people. Why don't you just leave, mate? So heckling is, mind you, as we were discussing this morning, I have no desire for the government or the authorities to ever make out through some kind of PC agenda that heckling should be stopped to save the emotional world space of the comedian. No. I'd rather go home and have 10 minutes of mild depression that the gig was ruined by a guy yelling out more than the state being involved in making things non-human. So heckling, it is what it is. Some people are just rude. They just talk about. That's annoying. That's like a fly in a room, just... All the focus has got to be on the performer, and then people's consciousness it just gets distracted. They just now the focus disappears. And we videotaped last night. I can even tell these people at the back. I can just hear them in the background, and then you see a guy in the front row just go. So he's already he's been clicked out of the focus. So. In one sense, the original question, what do you think about heckling? What's the best one? I sometimes don't know what it is. Fun heckling is good, people with a bit of wit, but chatting and just being annoying is just boring, As I say, it's like painting a picture and having someone going. Because it looks like there's just a bloke standing there talking to most people who've ever done it. They don't know there's actual skill to it sometimes. They just think, well, it's just a bloke talking. But no, it's not. There's a performance going on here, mate. I'm. If you want to get lofty about it, it's almost like there's a degree of shamanic stuff going on here. I've got a we want to alchemize this into a...
You got to time it. You got to measure them.
Yeah, and when there's complete focus,
kind
and now I can do what I want to do, and you'll have a much better time. But when you've got that annoying voice, and when you've got smaller venues, when they get up and they kick over pint glasses, kink, 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 like it always seems that the comedy gods always seem to like give it to you as a test, because how does comedy work in a simple level? Well, you have a setup, don't you? And then if you're not one of these guys that just talks continuously, then there's a pause. What's the pause? Well, it's the tension, isn't it? It's the tension for the release. Like a chorus in a song, a pop song. That's what you want, isn't it? Like that Aha song. Rain on me. You know that each level that goes up, the tension's going like this, isn't it? Every chick you see at the dance floor, I've seen a lot of, I've done a lot of comedy gigs. They used to have discos after, whatever you call them, and then you'd watch these girls, they can't wait for that end bit. When it hits that high, that's the release. That's like a punchline coming. And when people are chatting in between that bit, it's just, it wrecks it in a way they can't see. So it's quite boring, but I never want it banned or anything like that. Not at all.
How'd you get started in comedy then?
Well, I was in bands for about 17 years. And then after being in bands, it was moderately successful, toured overseas from Australia and underground heavy metal. And then I made another band in the mid-90s and made 2 albums and did some big tours with Australian bands. And then the bass player leaves. And as I was getting in my late 20s, I realised I can't trust my life to... In a band, you've got other people. So I realised I can't trust my life to other people. You spend 5 years going to rehearsals and doing records and touring, and then the singer or something goes, I don't want to do this. And then I thought, well, if I learn to do comedy, then it's just me. So I can't. And I was always a kind of funny guy, could act. And actually, I'm both, because the musicians are serious. I like being serious. I like it, As much as Bono's a bit of a globalist mental case now, I always liked the messianic seriousness of early U2. I like. It's what musicians like. But a lot of musicians, their photos are like this, aren't they? But they're quite funny people. Whereas a lot of comedians, their photos are wacky, but sometimes they're serious people.
They can be really
yeah. Whereas I'm just kind of both. So I was never. And I went and did a drama course in the mid-90s, improvisation course. Because we used to watch comedy, Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy and Steve Martin, and even early back on, listen to Bill Cosby records. I can still remember the day listening to Slayer and Bill Cosby in the same day. And I never thought about doing comedy, but then as it went on, I just thought, maybe if I can do this, I can then go to Europe and not have to try and drag a whole band there either.
So it's just to get rid of your bandmates then?
Well, if I'm honest, I prefer to be making music. I find it a more exciting form of expression than comedy, in the sense of, I love making records. I've made a solo record in the last couple of years, music, and it's just I love putting music together and hearing it all form and recording it and having it. Whereas if I record myself doing comedy, I'm not going to watch my comedy DVD back, but if I make records, I'll listen to them.
The thing about watching yourself back with comedy is all the punchlines.
Mind you, I did, when I started editing my DVDs, I did realise that I should have been filming myself and watching it back more, because now it's like recording an album while you have an engineer, a producer, because he's outside of it. So when I started to watch back my own comedy and thing, I started to write punchlines off my own lines.
Yeah.
Because I'm not in it now. I can watch it objectively, which is what a good record producer will do. He's not in the band. He can listen to it objectively and go, those 3 bars there, yeah, try dropping that. And then they drop it and go, oh yeah, that's better. So I basically just got into it because I couldn't have a normal job either. I knew that from school. I wasn't qualified to do anything, and I was only qualified to have sort of, basically warehouse jobs and stuff when they existed. And I just said, I can't. So maybe the dysfunctional childhood helps. It always helps. It sends you on a path of individual thinking early on. You know what I mean?
So, in terms of comedy, how have you found it in recent years with all the censorship that's been going on? Because we've had Alistair Williams down here, and he's been cancelled for almost 10 years. I think it's 8 years now, just because he made a joke about Brexit. How have you been finding it with all the censorship?
Brexit, was it?
Yeah. Were you in the country for that?
No, I don't think I was.
It was 95% media coverage to remain and 5% to leave. And if you were open leave, you got pilloried. Not as bad as with the lockdowns where, you got beaten up and thrown in a cell, but halfway there.
Yeah.
But have you dealt with cancellation and people getting upset because you've caused
I've had a few
offence?
shows cancelled. One in Tasmania got cancelled, and I've had my agents dump me. My Australian agents. I had time out for a few years to deal with some personal stuff, and then I came back and did a whole tour of Australia and sold it out. Big theatres too back in Australia, like 2,000 seaters, and then my agents dumped me. So we've reached that age where before that would be an agent's dream.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to deal with the backlash. And then I came here and then to do another tour in 2020, and I was only here 3 weeks, and they started that nonsense that we all went through. So I didn't do the tour till about 2021, and then I did it through comedy clubs then. It was my UK management at the time, and then I got the phone call one day about 2/3 of the way through the tour. So-and-so, this club is upset and this and that. And I thought it was audience members, but it wasn't. It was bar staff.
Is that how they're getting them? Is that how they're
so
shutting
now
everything
it's
down?
just the next minute, my management's not ringing. And I hadn't been here for like 6 years. And I did a basically sold out tour of the UK after being away for 6 years, and then got dumped by my UK management.
Well, it's a bit
I
weird.
heard it was for a different reason, but I don't particularly believe that. I believe it's for the consequences of dealing with, because managers and that have other acts, and and then you realise that some other acts might even go, well, if you're going to look after him, then I'm going to have to leave because So I have no proof of that happened, but I certainly know that I became managerless after. But I haven't really been hunted down. I come on things like this to tell everybody I keep a low profile. You kind of do. Like Iron Maiden during the grunge years. Fly under the radar for a bit.
Thinking in this day and age, with the absolute landscape of psychological insanity, we're all being threatened to join in. I'm thinking Arrogance is becoming a good psychological bulwark against the landscape of absolute insanity. Yeah. Indeed, because we have people come up, the old adage, isn't it? Well, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, Steve. I'm thinking, not anymore. It's gone too mental, and you're no longer entitled to an opinion, as far as I know. Do you think men can get pregnant and they can have periods and should be in boxing matches against women? Well, yeah, and depending on your perspective... Let me stop you there. You're no longer entitled to an opinion. Who says? Me! And all the other humans who have an unspoken allegiance to function within objective reality. Yes.
The weird thing about comedy, though, is I think to be a comedian, you need to be someone who is quite intuitive, quite witty, quite intelligent, and someone who sees through the bull. A lot of comedy is picking out the stupidities and idiosyncrasies of life and finding things that are just weird, that don't actually really make sense when you think about them. But then you see most of the comedians on TV, most of the comedians with big deals. Do you think that they're awake to what's going on?
Well, I think, there's different types of comedy, obviously. Some acts don't even go there. And not because they're so enamoured in the system or anything. I mean, there's different types of comedy. Some stuff's just observational comedy about everyday life. Why have women got so many shoes and do this and carry on? And sometimes it's funny. I mean, Michael McIntyre's funny. He doesn't really do anything political, but he can get 20 minutes of material out of the drawer next to the sink. I can't do that. I've got a drawer. The scissors and tape in it. I didn't get any jokes out of it, but he does. But the comedy that I've always liked, with what you're talking about, is the stuff that said something. Well, I always looked at it like this. If there's a God, then he went, well, there's going to be a lot of tears on that planet, so you better give him laughter as well.
Yeah.
And it balances it out. And I think laughing is a great balm against tragedy. Eventually you laugh at the tragedy that happened in your life, But you get this stuff where there's lots of people running around now going, who gives these comedians the right to say such sexist and racist and homophobic things, whatever? And I'm like, well, I've been doing comedy 25 years. What comedians are you talking about? Which ones? Who was going up there being blatantly sexist, racist, right, with using comedy as the disguise of their real hatred? It wasn't happening. That's no one's business strategy to go up there and be a complete ignorant racist or something and just go, yeah, I'll disguise it with jokes and that'll get me work. No, it won't. No, it won't.
Well, it's making a mockery of it, isn't it? It's like, do you see about Count Dankula?
It was
Mark Meacham. Like, he trained his girlfriend's pug to raise his paw.
Yeah.
Whenever he said Heil Hitler.
I know, it's...
And they took it so seriously. He was convicted of training a pug to be a Nazi.
See, it's funny, they're writing comedy. In their accusations, they're writing comedy. That is comedy.
I mean,
that sounds like Monty Python.
It just doesn't make any sense. It's like, so what is your accusation against him? That he's radicalizing the dog? That he thought that he could convert people over to the Nazi cause because they saw a pug do a little Nazi salute? Is that what they think is that the future of Nazism? Because if it is, I'm not very worried about it.
Thousands of pug dogs coming down.
Thousands of goose-stepping pugs.
Pug dogs.
with little red, white and black collars.
Well, we all know. I mean, when I started doing this stuff against PC, 15 years ago, I did it on live at the Apollo or McIntyre's thing against the PC stuff. Because straight away, I mean, I don't know why anyone didn't wake up then when they said that you can we might bring in laws around offending people. Well, there was the red flag. Bink! Because we've already got laws if I assault you or abuse you or, but offence, well, that's a subjective. As I always say, now you try and put an objective law around a subjective world space.
Yeah, it's just someone's opinion.
So it's like a subjective inner fascism that you can't defend yourself in because it has no validity in objective reality. Usually when you have laws, if your house has been robbed and all your stuff's missing, well, we can see. There's a dead body, someone's been murdered. What's happened? If someone just goes, I'm offended, well, they can't prove that. And they have no validity, they don't have to prove it. And because you can't. All you have to do is say I was offended and then go, okay, prove it. Well, you can't. And then you can't prove you didn't mean to offend them.
Well, it only works one way, doesn't it?
Well, it's just, it doesn't even work. It's just, I mean, it's a clever strategy, isn't it? I mean, they use like now, they go, if they'd made Doctor Who a woman, but there was no politics around it, I bet most people who watched Doctor Who wouldn't have cared.
Yeah. No one would have cared.
They wouldn't have cared. If the writer had just gone, well, he was in a sort of matriarchal dimension and then he transferred in there and he turned into a chick and it was funny. I mean, it was a good show and you wrote it well.
I mean, to be honest, that sounds less convoluted than most of the Doctor Who plot lines.
Completely. I mean, I don't think anyone would have cared. But everybody knows. So in the old days, they would have gone, okay, we'll try it as a woman. And then if it didn't work, they would have gone, okay, well, we'll re-strategize and remarket and go back to the way it would work better and think of it. But now they just go, well, everyone's a sexist. No, we can just see through the politics here. And now it's a black gay guy. Or they're racist or they're homophobic. No, it's just, we know what you're doing.
I just disengage from it most of the time.
Yeah, I don't watch any of this stuff.
What I wonder is, how many of the other comedians, what percentage would you say, are actually want to do freedom comedy, see through all of the that's going on? And how many of them are actually just completely indoctrinated?
It's hard for me to make judgment calls. I'm not really in the comedy scene much anymore. I know Andrew Lawrence is good. He says what he wants. Dominic Frisby is good. Alistair Williams.
Tanya Edwards. There are a few, especially the ones down at Comedy Unleashed.
Yeah, there's a few. My Irish agent, he's a comedian and my agent. He does it. He's got good comedy. Back in the day when 2000 I moved to the UK and started doing comedy, it was just great. It was very simple. If you were funny, you got work. You can't tell me that it was dominated by white men. It was just, it was more white. You're in a country like England, there's lots of white men here. Surprise. And they do comedy. The comedy is a part of British history and the psyche, and they did it. But you're not going to tell me that it was dominated by white men and we didn't, because I was there. There was black guys there, Indian guys there was women there was gay guys there was Scottish blokes from council estates, there was posh blokes there. And now they were going, we need a safe space. A comedian's dressing room is a safe space. Most artists are kind of lefty people anyway. Well, we don't care. Musicians, haven't I watched music bands from the 50s with 3 black guys, 2 white guys in them? Most creative people usually don't. They're the ones that are usually advanced in some of this ignorance. We don't care. I've never cared. As I always say, that's why you can't try and convince me that it was I mean, I have simplistic views in the sense I think the simplicity is valid, because when I grew up, I watched TV and there was women on the TV. They were in films. There was black people on the TV. I used to watch American TV. There was black people. Obviously, I'm a child. I don't know that there's social things going on in the world, but I'm sitting there watching it, and then I'm watching Kate Bush and Susie and the Banshees, and there's women singing and playing pianos and making bands, and I was in bands. I knew women in bands. I never thought women can't do it. Just didn't think. I didn't think black people can't do it, although I just didn't. Maybe I'm an advanced soul. You want to be, if people think it's arrogant, but I've never been racist or sexist. I liked the outliers. People who weren't fitting in. They're the people I sought. Punks, metalheads, goths, gays. Because they were usually more exciting and fun because they had some adversity in their life. You know?
Bohemians, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever rewatched Little Britain? Or did you ever watch it originally?
I've seen some recently on YouTube again. It's so, oh God, they'd freak out now, wouldn't they?
Mate, it's got so much better. And Come Fly With Me that they did afterwards.
Yeah, it's better now.
Yeah. At the time, it was like, it was strange because it was silly. It was like, oh my God, how could anyone ever believe that, you know, how could anyone take this so seriously? Two men walking around as women. It was so out there and so ridiculous that no one would ever go and do that. That it was weird, so it was a little bit funny, but it wasn't the be all and end all. Oh my God. Now, if you watch it, it is absolutely mint. It is aged like the finest wine. It is perfect, right? To be honest, I want to get it all on DVD before they just purge the lot.
Oh yeah, they purge the lot.
Yeah, they're gonna purge it all.
Yeah,
you know. The race swapping in Come Fly With Me. Right,
they've changed lines in the young ones and everything. I mean, they wouldn't like bottom anymore or anything of that stuff. You know, like I loved all that stuff.
Do you remember MASH?
Yeah.
Where they've got the guy who goes around dressing. Yeah, got the guy dressing as a woman. Is that
trying to get kicked out of the army?
Yeah, because the whole point is he's dressing as a woman to show that he's mad.
Yeah,
and they know he's not. He doesn't actually believe he's a woman.
Yeah, I know.
They know that it's nonsense, but that was considered to be insane. And these days, you wouldn't get away with it.
No, the rest of the soldiers get kicked out. They just leave him there.
And even the gay men are upset now. I've seen them on YouTube. I'm waiting for them to appear. I saw some comment the other day on this gay guy's got a channel going, I hate these rainbow people. Get them out of my life. The great comment was this old English guy. He goes, I'm just a 63-year-old English puff. My sexuality is no one's business. I hope these rainbow just fuck off and leave us alone. Right. Because they're always thinking that, you know, us heterosexual people are the greatest threat to their existence. I'm thinking, yeah, but I'd like to point out to you, we're the only reason you have a fucking existence. We made you. Without us, you don't exist. So start being fucking nice or we'll stop.
Okay, I've got a question. Do you think that men or women are funnier?
Oh, men.
Is it just because...
As a whole, I've met hilariously funny women. Of course I have. I'm in comedy. I've watched their shows. I watch Absolutely Fabulous. I love it, right? Funny women. Funny. I've watched... when I first started comedy, I read Joan... what was the American woman's name? Joan Rivers. I read her book, you know. But as a whole, men are usually... Because men are more ridiculous than women.
Is it not just because we need to be funny to get laid?
I use that in my show as well.
We
need strategies to get laid.
Yeah.
Women don't really need strategies. There's that. There's nature.
They've got the easy route.
Yeah. Men are more ridiculous. They talk about ridiculous. Yeah, the great American comic who's passed away now, Patrice O'Neill, you know, that black guy from New York. Well, he's the master, you know.
Who are your inspirations?
My inspirations would be early on Richard Pryor. Of course, we used to watch that when we were like teenagers, that live on LA, Sunset Strip. And see, it was funny. I mean, that's what's so great about him, because he used to take the out of the white people with that voice. Excuse me, this is our chair, right? Yeah, we're all laying all tight, right? Were you getting offended? No, ourselves, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Right? Like, and then, so we used to watch a lot of Richard Pryor. Eddie Murphy was obviously inspired by Richard Pryor. And then we'd watch early, because, you know, living in Australia, we got a lot of UK television and American television. So we had Billy Connolly all the time. We used to have Dave Allen even. Now, I wasn't inspired to become a comedian then, but this is the early influences I now look at. And then, and when I got into comedy, because I just started reading comedy books written by comedians, even if they were just biographies. But I got really inspired to how to construct jokes by Woody Allen. Like, he's got those books without feathers and side effects. I just read them, and I can remember sometimes when I listened to early heavy metal, like Metallica, when it was so amazing back in the day, and it was so brilliant, you'd almost have to turn it off sometimes. It's just too good. I remember reading some Woody Allen books and just realising this is just... I had to put one down one day and go, this guy's just a genius. And how to structure jokes. He was a big inspiration on how to cut the fat and make the joke, just that you get the right words and just cut the fat. He was a huge inspiration. And then I got inspired by Bill Hicks, obviously, because he was, I used to be in a black metal band called Nazul. The guy who was the keyboard player and sound engineer, his father had that Relentless by Bill Hicks. And he showed me that. And that was to my taste, because I came from that. Because before that, I'd been hanging around metalheads and punk guys. So these punk guys introduced me to, like, Henry Rollins used to sing in Black Flag, and Jello Biafra, who sang in Dead Kennedys. And they did spoken word records back in the 80s, which I'd never heard of in the heavy metal scene. It wasn't a heavy metal thing. And so where they'd just get up and they record themselves doing monologues and rants and talks on stage and all that. And it was kind of that underground. And I liked that. That was kind of exciting. I liked guys just getting up and talking about, which is why, woke people think they've come up with this brand new idea. We were doing all this in the punk and underground scene. Don't fall for the mainstream nonsense. But now the mainstream seems to have coveted the alternative, created their own alternative for propaganda. And
well, they've not got a concept of history, so they always think they've discovered everything.
Oh, mate, I say that
fresh.
sometimes. It's almost like they think they're the first people to work out. Do you know it's not very nice to be horrible to other people?
Really?
Yeah.
Mate, I had no clue.
Yeah, I didn't have a clue. I didn't have manners, or my parents didn't teach me nothing, or I just don't have a natural understanding that, it's not nice to hit people for no reason or call them that. Like,
does that mean I need to stop all of the rape and murder?
Yeah.
Because I had a genocide plan for next weekend.
Oh yeah, totally. It's ludicrous. So that's my inspiration, because Bill Hicks was inspiring, because I always liked artists or like musicians like that as well, who said stuff. I liked Richard Pryor. Wasn't particularly political, but he knew it was real, about his life and his traumas and his chaos and his drugs and his
George Carlin as well.
Carlin, Carlin. I like Carlin more now than I did back then, because I used to think George Carlin was all right, and I knew he was a legend, and obviously he's better than all right, but he just wasn't really. I didn't take to it, and then even in the last year, I'm going to watch a lot of George Carlin and listen to him, and I just went, no, this he's a master and got more full on as he got older, which was great. Yeah.
You hone your craft.
I know, yeah. But I never thought he was particularly hilarious. But then when I realised, mate, this guy's been doing it since he was a suit and chap with a short haircut on TV, and he's been doing it a long time. He knows everything. Yeah, I love him. He's one of the greatest.
But thing is, I think back in the day, people had to do they had to put a lot of work into their comedy. At this point, are you having trouble? Because it's almost like things satirise themselves.
Yeah.
Like the Babylon Bee is now known as, essentially a crystal ball. You know the Babylon Bee?
No.
They're a well-known fake newspaper, so they just put out headlines like
The Onion or something.
They put out fake headlines, the most ridiculous thing possible. Like, oh my god, I don't know. I don't know one off the top of my head. I'd say
I know what you mean, like vegetarians land on Mars and create something ridiculous or something.
I don't know. A vegetarian start eating meat because it eats grass. So technically that's vegetarian.
Yeah.
Do you need to put as much work into material, or does it essentially start writing itself when you're doing stuff that's political?
When I started getting more satirical, I used to read the newspapers. I haven't read newspapers now for about 12 years, because I used to read it, because they would write jokes for you.
Yeah.
In their lunacy. I've stopped doing that because I just don't want to listen to I can't imagine what it's like watching the news now. It must be Oh my God. Well, not that I've really watched the news since I was a kid. I never watched the news. And then, but I don't know. I just stick to myself now. I just stay with the few guys I know and gig with the guys I know. And it's almost like I've gone back to the 80s in underground punk metal bands. And that's why I don't get so freaked out going, oh, Steve. I get freaked out because I'm getting older and I wouldn't mind to have a bunch of cash so I can try and buy $1 million 1-bedroom apartment somewhere, which is going to be, because the whole world's mental.
I thought you were eyeing up that mansion.
Yeah, I'd love to live in the mansion up there. But it's, as you said, some of these acts, I guess they have more mainstream thinking and I better not do this, it'll disrupt my career. And I'm thinking, well, I could just go underground like I did, because I know it's a valid place, the underground. It's good. It's when we were doing thrash metal, and we were in Australia, not even in Europe or the States, where you might have had a chance of getting a career in Australia, but we still did it. I made the first thrash metal band in Australia, Slaughterlord, and it's still known because I did so much work and posted demos out, and the whole underground started. And then, because even mainstream metal mags didn't like thrash metal when it began, people started making their own fanzines, photocopied magazines. So next minute it was even greater, because now I could just send demos from Australia around the world, and some guy in Colombia would get it, and Sweden and the States, and put you in a mag. And it's just a handmade thing, but it got posted around. And then you got another letter from some bloke in Canada that went, oh, my mate in Colombia sent me the tape of your band. You want to do an interview with me? And it was like the internet before the internet, done through the mail.
You've been through it, you've done this for years, and you've got history before, still in entertainment. What's your advice to people coming up now who are worried about being cancelled and, want to get their voice out there? What's the first step they should take in comedy?
If I answer that question without including the current climate, and they said, how do you start in comedy? To me, it's how do you start anything? You got to, don't chase money immediately. Do you have something to say? We're talking comedy. Do you want to do it? And then if you do, just do it. Start. Because if someone said, do you want to come all the way down to Penzance and do a gig for 50 quid on a Tuesday? Go. Oh, but I won't make any money. Go.
It's an opportunity.
The comedy gods or the muse, the artistic muse or the universe itself sees you doing action. And that aids. I believe in this. It aids, action. And now you're not talking about doing it, you're doing it. Even if you lost 100 quid, you did it.
And you're honing your craft.
Right, you're honing it. And you're doing it, you're putting... The universe, the earth likes action. That's why I don't like mechanising everything. I didn't even like dishwashers when they turned up. If you've got a restaurant, a hotel, and there's 400 plates coming through that place in an hour, then you get yourself a dishwasher. But at home, no, it's anti-nature. Wash up. Wash yourself up. Just do... You've got to put action into life, and then it happens.
You've got to give your wife something to do.
Yeah. So sexist. But that's always been my advice. Just get out there, start, do it. If you want fame or cash. Depending on what you want. If you want to be Jimmy Carr, then maybe you take a different path to how I would tell you to take a path. Because I've always been more underground. And if you want to go into that world and go in there, then you do what you need to do. I can't answer anybody's questions if that's the area they want to go into, because I've never chased it. I don't even know how I got on some of those big comedy shows in the UK. Maybe my management were brilliant back then, because I never chased any of it. People used to go, when you're in Edinburgh and you have to do all the schmoozing. I'm like, do you? I don't know. Maybe I'm not a good business strategist, because I've always just maybe taken on that old. Because when you're in an underground thrash metal band or death metal band or whatever you want to call it, and you're going to make an album called Sluts of Satan and put demons on the cover, no one's stopping you. So I still have that in my thing. You do what you want. That's what I thought art was. Don't you do what you want?
Yeah. It's expression.
yeah, right. And then, if it gets picked up, it gets picked up. Or you make it happen. That's why I think also with this woke stuff, they don't realise that when they're going, we need to be included and you've got to have an equity quota and fit all the people in. No. They're taking away also your advantage of adversity. The adversity gives you an advantage. It gives you an impetus.
Well, if there's no challenge in life,
There's right.
damn well bored.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Do you think Bill Gates decided to take over the world just because he had nothing to do?
It's funny you say that. There was once. There's a. He's quite successful now. He's very funny. A Finnish comedian called Ismo. And he used to read the conspiracy books back in the day. His comedy's doesn't go down those paths. But he once said to me, he goes, Steve, I've read all the conspiracy stuff, and sometimes you wonder yourself why, you have everything, all the money and the history, and you've got your castles and your jets and all this, and still you want to take over the world. And I think, why are you bothered? And I guess when you have all that stuff in your life, you just think, learning tennis doesn't cut it for me anymore. I've got to try and take over the planet. Yeah, I don't know what these people are up to, really, in the psychology of them. Because I'm like,
well, it's just the next step.
I mean,
they
it's
always want a challenge, and next challenge when you're that powerful.
I guess
you can walk in anywhere. You can speak to any president. You can go anywhere. You can go on any holiday. You can see any place. Right? They've got their Lolita Express and Epstein's Island, and they literally have everything they could possibly want. At some point, they just start messing around with everyone else. The only thing that I can't control is these people's personal lives. I can pay them to be a waiter or a prostitute or a musician, or they can come perform their comedy for me. But at some point you go, okay, but what about the rest of their lives, right? Can I control that?
Someone gave me enough money to live until I've died and a house to live in. Do you need more challenges, Steve? No, not this late in life. What do you need to do this for? You've got all this money. Why don't you just sit out and learn? I don't know what they do.
Maybe it's people who lack creativity.
Maybe it's a part of our evolution. And so if we're going to consciously evolve, we were just talking about adversity. Maybe they're giving us the greatest of adversities.
So technically, the worldwide genocide could be a gift.
Yeah. But if we were just talking about adversity, then you could look at it as going, okay, well, here's some superior adversity, as these chaotic maniacs want to take control of your life and that. So maybe it's our chance to spiritually and psychically evolve above our normal reactions to that, which is what usually violence. Because when you end up getting pressured and threatened, and which is a natural response too as well. It's self-preservation. An animal will respond like that. Not that we're particularly animals per se in the sense of their level of consciousness, but that's what an animal does. Protects its territory. It's young. It's how? Well, I'll bite your face off.
Now, I don't hate dogs. I'm not a psycho. People come up to you, hate dogs. Of course I don't hate dogs. I'm not mental. People don't come up to me. Hi, Stevie. How are you? This is Mitzi. F*** off, Mitzi. But I'm not mental. But I don't hang out with dogs. They kept telling me, it's man's best friend, Steve. Well, your best friend, perhaps. See, my best friends can read.
Have you ever read Fight Club or watched the movie?
I've seen the movie, yeah.
Yeah, I think that reflects a lot of what we're talking about. It's people who, they have no meaning, They say, where's our great war? Where's our great struggle? Set in, 80s, 90s, and previous generation, okay, they were fighting Second World War. Generation before that, First World War. Generation before that didn't even have electricity.
Yeah.
All of these generations had some great challenge. Do you think it's all got a bit too easy?
I think we've been pacified with comfort, haven't we? And which personally, as an individual, I don't particularly mind. I understand the power of adversity, and it gives you an impetus to move forward and have. I wrote a line once, I haven't used it to show you, just going, people go, what would life be without a challenge, Steve? I think, wonderful, comfy. Yeah, a doddle. At 20, maybe I wouldn't do that. As I'm getting older, I'm thinking, I could just sit around.
Well, you can be our test case.
Yeah.
If it all goes well with this tour, you sell out everything, you make your hundreds of thousands or millions, then you can sit back and we'll see whether you start trying to take over.
Well, my tour managers over there, I don't think we're pulling in the millions. I mean, obviously, you have your own. I sometimes wonder, do I have my own self-destructive parts of me that veer away from being massively famous? I could have. You have them. I don't know if I'd want to be massively famous.
Well, it affects people, doesn't it? It means you can't just live a normal life.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be massively famous. I have no desire for that. It's almost like in music world, the guys who used to be, who were like, I read a lot of books written by music producers and stuff, and they were like, oh, I was so happy to be a producer because I made a fortune off that record, but I don't have to do any. I don't do any interviews. No one knows who I am. I just go out because it's brilliant.
Oh, that's these lot. They're absolutely loving it. Honestly. No one knows what you look like, do they?
But yeah, it's a funny old place for it at the moment, isn't it? It's like an animated, clown world. That's the thing that people talk. But it's like they keep telling us to go see these things that are happening. Yeah, they're not happening.
Do you think the comedy is going to be the thing that wins it?
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know whether you're a Trump fan or not a Trump fan, or you're kind of neutral in the middle.
What fan?
Somewhere. A Trump fan.
Trump.
A lot of people put his victory down to the memes. They say that Pepe won the election.
Yeah, right.
Well, it only came down to about 300,000 votes across 5 states.
I'm not a fan of any of these people.
But do you think that comedy really has the power to sort of tip us over the edge?
I don't know. I know it certainly has the power to help people laugh at darkness and laugh at adversity and enjoy themselves and look at life. As you said, the comedian's job is usually, let's look at this a little differently. Things that seem obvious to the comedian, and you can point them out. And I don't know if that as a singular thing or one singular thing will help save this situation into a more evolved state. We may have to go through some kind of huge dark night of the soul as a collective to, to come out the other side. I guess that there's one way for them to not scare you is I'm not particularly, I'm scared of death in the sense of just that inner world that you're going into the unknown. I think everybody's got a dose of that. But it would be a good thing to not be scared of death, because they threaten us with death, don't they? Personally, I'd be more scared of having the nightmare world they seem to be creating, having to exist in that. I think that would be more harrowing than
Terry
going
Pratchett.
into the next world. Terry Pratchett, the author.
Yeah. I think he's great because his Discworld, it is comedy all the way through. And the further he goes, the better it gets. And his concept of death as a character, death isn't evil.
No.
It's life that kills you.
Yeah.
Not death.
Yeah. And it is just the other side of life. It's like in Buddhism, in the duality of things. The subjective, objective, up, down, black, white, in, out, sort of, there it is. You have to have death with the life. They come as a package.
Yeah, death just comes to pick you up, man. Yeah. Life is the one that
batters you.
gives you all the problems. The good and the bad. Death is just it's like, okay, well, all right, I've got your lift now. Taxis there.
Yeah, Uber. yeah.
Little scythe logo on it or something. So, do you ever play D&D?
No, my buddy did in the Blue Mountains, who I first started a band with. A band that went nowhere with just me and 2 other blokes, an English bloke I used to know, and they were both English. And but he used to play. He was the guy that could do Rubik's cubes in 2 seconds. And loved D&D.
Wow.
Yeah, he's just one of these blokes, and
he
loved the D&D. So I always knew about it. But that's why, because people used to say these things for nerds and dorks, and I never used to like people calling them. I used to think, but these people are interested in something. You're all the mainstream that are just watching football and doing the same thing. So I always liked people who are doing things that people chastise them for.
I think football's for nerds.
Oh, yeah.
You're watching 22 sweaty millionaires run up and down a piece of grass who hate you and get down on one knee to exterminate your race.
Yeah, there's that now.
Well, it has been a pleasure. Where can people find you, and where are you upcoming?
We should have brought a flyer with us.
How long are you touring for?
We've got another few more weeks to go. Yeah, we've got some stuff in Scotland if I can get out of there alive. And
well, be careful up there.
Yeah, I will.
Don't upset any feelings.
I can't.
Leave the pugs alone.
What else have we got? We're doing a Shropshire. We're going to a lot of places. SteveHughes.net. All the tour dates are on there. That's an easy way to do it. I forget about the digital world. There you go, folks. SteveHughes.net. All the tour dates are on there.
Thank you for coming out. And Have a great festival and avoid the cones on the way back if you can.
Thanks for watching. Please give us a like, a share, a subscribe, hit the notification button if you would like to help. We've got a Patreon and a Subscribe Star, so please head on over there and pledge us some support if you want to keep this journalism going. We've got a professional studio here and we could do with your support to keep these great conversations coming.